Welcome back to Rooted IRL. I'm your host, Amber, and we are on episode 8. Are you ready to live out your faith? Then this podcast is for you. Let's dig into God's Word and wrestle through all that He has for us, the truth, the tension, and the transformation that comes with it. This is Rooted IRL. Today, I am so excited to talk to you about something that popped up in just my daily Bible reading, and I want to share with you about how God will give us special giftings and how we can honor Him with those. Today, I want to talk to you about 2 separate scenes in the Bible. I think when you see how these 2 stories are connected, you are going to think about your calling and your giftings differently. And you're going to have a new and deeper appreciation for the God who designed you. So in the first scene, we're in the desert and Israel has fled from Egypt. They are wandering in the desert and they are conquering lands as they go through. And in this particular story, they're fighting against the Amalekites. An old man stands on top of a hill named Moses. I'm sure you've heard of Moses before. His arms are stretched out towards heaven, and as long as his arms stay up, the children of Israel are winning the fight. But Moses is human, he is old, and his arms grow heavy, and his hands begin to fall. 2 men are standing near Moses and notice that when his arms fall, the children of Israel start to be overtaken and the opposing army advances on them. They also see that when his arms are raised up to God, they continue winning this fight. So the 2 men go and get a rock for Moses to sit on to rest and hold his arms up. And they hold them for hours until the sun goes down and the battle is won. Then in a different scene, years later, God is about to have a dwelling place built where He can meet with His people. It's the tabernacle, where heaven is going to meet earth. And God had already chosen the man He wanted to build it. He chose a creator. And when God announced the man's name, He included his family tree. The thread of faithfulness running through them is going to encourage you in this episode to find, discover, and use the gifts that God has given you. In Exodus 17, verses 11 through 13, I'm going to read them to you out of the New Living Translation. We read about Moses, and it says, "As long as Moses held up the staff in his hand, the Israelites had the advantage. But whenever he dropped his hand, the Amalekites gained the advantage. Moses' arms soon became so tired he could no longer hold them up. So Aaron and Hur found a stone for him to sit on. Then they stood on each side of Moses, holding up his hands. So his hands held steady until sunset. As a result, Joshua overwhelmed the army of the Amalek in battle." Meet Hur. We're going to talk about his great-grandson today as well. But he doesn't get a chapter. He doesn't get to preach a sermon. He doesn't get to hear God speak from a burning bush. This man is just on a hillside, notices that Moses needs help, notices that his arms are growing tired, that he needs to sit down, and he grabs his arms and holds them all day until sundown. And the nation of Israel survives because of it. Notice that he was faithful and steady. He was gifted with the ability to stand beside someone and not let go, using his own strength to keep someone else's calling going. And he used that to honor God. He did not try to take Moses' place. He did not run down when the battle started raging more intensely and the Israelites were losing. He did not go and try to jump in and help fight. He saw the need for Moses' arms to be held. And for hours, he gave everything he had to do it. In the desert, until the sun went down. This is not a small thing. They are not sitting in comfortable air-conditioned church pews. They are in the desert. It's one of those gifts that is not celebrated enough. And sometimes I just call it the gift and the power of the show up, of holding steady and using your strength to keep someone else up. Hur had that gift, and he used it as an act of worship. He was eventually so trusted by Moses that when he went up Mount Sinai to receive the law from God himself, he left Aaron and Hur in charge of the entire nation. Hur is a man of deep character, and he has proven his faithfulness to Moses. Jewish tradition actually holds that Hur was killed trying to stop people from building a golden calf. So his last recorded act was standing for God's holiness when the crowd turned against him. He was faithful until the very end. So we're going to shift gears into the next story, which is the same God, but totally different circumstances and totally different giftings. Hur never saw any of the things we're going to talk about in his family line come to pass, but he just kept being faithful with what was right in front of him. Now, I do want to add a disclaimer that some of these names are difficult to pronounce. As I've said many times, we are all just trying to figure this out. And so I'm going to say the name of Hur's grandson, and hopefully I'm saying it right, but if I'm not, please don't hold it against me. We're going to go to Exodus chapter 31. I'm going to read you verses 1 through 6 about Hur's great-grandson, Bezalel. Verse 1, Then the Lord said to Moses, Look, I have specifically chosen Bezalel, son of Uri, grandson of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. I have filled him with the Spirit of God, giving him great wisdom, ability, and expertise in all kinds of crafts. He is a master craftsman, expert in working with gold, silver, and bronze. He is skilled in engraving and mounting gemstones and in carving wood. He is a master at every craft. And I have personally appointed Oholiab, son of Ahisamach, of the tribe of Dan, to be his assistant. Moreover, I've given special skill to all the gifted craftsmen so they can make all the things I've commanded you to make. Did you catch that lineage? Son of Uri, son of Hur. God chose the grandson of the man who stood on the hillside, the grandson of the man who held on when he did not get the credit and was not going to be attributed with winning the war. But God did not forget. He stood for God and his holiness and gave his life for it. And God was like, yeah, I see that. I'm going to honor that. Generations later, Hur's name is written into the most sacred construction project in Israel's history. Right there in the opening line of Bezalel's calling. Hur used his gift to honor God. Bezalel used his gift to honor God. And God used both of them to build something that is a story that spans generations and still encourages us today. God is not forgetful. He is a generational God, and the faithfulness of people who prayed over you, who held things together when they were hard, and who used their gifts quietly without applause is not lost on him. And sometimes harvest comes in the next generation. So a sideline to this story is the importance of you remaining faithful, because generations are coming behind you and they are counting on your faithfulness for God to use them later. Hur's gift of faithfulness created the conditions of Bezalel's gift to matter, which is what is so cool because they're part of the same story. So what are you doing with your gift when no one is watching? That is the Hur question. I love in verses 3 through 5 where it talks about God filled Bezalel with the Spirit of God. He gave him very specific gifts working with gold, silver, bronze, stone, wood, design. He could have just said, I gave him a skill, or I gave him grit, or I just told him to do it and he had to figure it out. But he listed it because he had given him very intentional giftings and ability that he would use for God's glory. The very first story we read in the Bible is showing God as what? A creator. The first introduction we have to him is the creator of the cosmos. He's not just loving us and sitting on the side. He makes things. He is the creator. He shaped galaxies, carved canyons, designed the double helix in our DNA, and painted 10,000 species of birds with colors that did not have to exist. He did not have to make the world beautiful, but he chose to, because that's who he is. And we are made in his image. So think of this. The same wild, inexhaustible, and over-the-top creativity that he used to design the universe is turned toward you. You are not mass-produced. You are not copy and paste. In Psalm 139, do you know what it says? The Bible says he knit you together. We talked about that in a previous episode. It's like a master craftsman at work, paying attention to every single detail. Nothing about you is accidental. Nothing about you was by chance. You are deliberately and intentionally made as an act of the most creative being in the universe, God himself. So do you also realize that if God is the creator, and he is, and you are his child, and I hope you are, then creativity is woven into your spiritual DNA, which means you have giftings to fight on a spiritual level. It's going to be different in every person, but the desire to make or build or contribute or help or hold things together is the image of God himself in you. So hers creativity looked like loyalty and strength. No one else thought to grab Moses a rock. No one else thought to grab his arms. Bezalel's was art and craftsmanship. Both are expressions of a God who is endlessly diverse and generous in how he gifts his people. Your quirks are craftsmanship. Your combination of passions, skills, experiences, that's not random. God does not do random. Every detail of who you are was designed with a purpose in mind. In Exodus 36, 1 and 2, we read more about Bezalel and his assistant, Oholiab, and all of the craftsmen. God put the skill in each of them, and their hearts were stirred to use it. God will fill us with the gifts and the desires, and we just have to get the tools and do them. We just have to pick up the tools that he's given us. Bezalel showed up in the same way that his grandfather showed up, faithfully, without the perfect conditions. I mean, think about where they were. He's in a desert. Let's not forget that. He doesn't even have all of the materials yet. They have to be donated from the children of Israel, who are, P.S., in the desert. They're like nomads, just traveling around, setting up their tents, and then staying until the Lord told them to move. So none of those circumstances were ideal, but Bezalel picked up his tools anyway. Both of them chose to honor God with what they had, where they were, right then. What is so beautiful for me is I was studying this passage. So I had read this about Bezalel previously a couple weeks ago, and I thought I'm going to do an episode and just talk about how God uniquely gifts each of us. And so when I went back to do the script and I read the story again, as I've told you before, the Lord connected dots for me, and I read that he was the great grandson of Hur. And I thought, I wonder if that's the same Hur. So it is. And what is so cool is that what Hur did faithfully planted the seed for Bezalel generations behind him. So to you, I say, again, as a reminder, what you do with what God has given you matters. And there are generations coming behind you who need you to live for the Lord. You know, I'm all about making sure that you can walk away from every episode with some kind of tool that will help you in your faith walk. So I want to go through some ideas of how, if you're not sure of what your gifts are, then you can discover them and get to work doing what God has called you to do. Maybe you're in your late teens or early 20s and you don't know what God has called you to. You feel like everyone else has it figured out, which P.S. they don't. I am 41 and I still don't know. I'm still learning and I'm still trying to uncover and discover what does God have for me and how can I make the greatest impact with the time that he's given me on earth. So what I want you to know is Bezalel did not discover his gift sitting still. Do you think he became a master craftsman the first time he picked up a hammer or a chisel? No. Hur was not standing in the shadows waiting until Moses' arms fell so that he could pick them up. They both just had what was in front of them and they did it. So you may have spent years working on a skill and not have any idea. I can almost promise you, Bezalel did not know that God was going to use him to build his dwelling place. Think of that. The first time he picked up a chisel, the first time he was working with iron or with bronze, he had no idea God was going to build a tabernacle. It was not even a thing. And yet he was faithful to develop those skills and to become an expert by faithfully and repeatedly doing what he was naturally gifted at. And then God took that and used it. So how can you do that? How can you figure out where are my giftings and how do I use them? Well, the first thing, you need to find out what makes you come alive. When we read the story about Bezalel's heart being stirred, that means he couldn't stand to not do it. He was excited about it. He was drawn to it. He was pulled toward it. So what are you pulled toward? What ignites a fire in you and excites you? Is it building things, holding things together, helping, creating, serving? Whatever it is, follow it. And then ask the people around you, what do you think I do better than most? So you want to ask people that you trust, who know you well, and who will be honest. And then you take those answers and you see, can I find a pattern? Like if I said to my 3 or 5 closest people, what are the top 3 things you think I'm gifted at? And what word comes to mind when you think of me? What could I learn from that information? And once you do that, you're going to have to pick up some tools and get to work. Hur had to reach out and grab the arms of Moses. Bezalel had to get the tools and learn how to use them. So you're going to discover gifts by doing things, which is why when you have the least amount of things tying you down, the least amount of responsibilities in your adult life, this is the time to go all in. Volunteer, create, serve, do everything you can to get involved in kingdom work. Because sitting on the sidelines is not going to reveal your gift. You have to be in the game. And you get in the game by volunteering, engaging with your church, and reaching out to people. Then I want you to think about, what do you do even if nobody asks you? What do you walk into a room and notice? What is the thing that no one else picks up on, but you sense it immediately? What problems do you solve instinctively? What needs do you notice that other people just walk right by? That kind of noticing and focus is often directed to your calling. I'm going to give you a real example that I've used recently. I've shared with some of my friends. So when I am talking with someone about really anything, my brain breaks it down into, here's the steps to get this done. Here's the steps to accomplish this. Here's the things we should do to let people know what we're doing. It just kind of takes the, here's what I want, and puts footsteps to it of what we should actually do and how the process should go. And so for years, because that would be my instinctive thought, it just would come in my head without me really having to think about it. For years, I thought everyone was like that. I didn't recognize I had a gift to help break down larger, complex tasks into smaller chunks of things that we could accomplish to get toward our end goal. And so I just assumed everybody did that. And the older I got, the more I realized this is not something that everybody's brain just automatically does. So God has gifted me in that area. And now what my responsibility is now that I know it, how can I take that and turn it and serve the kingdom? So I want you to think about that. What is something that comes naturally to you that you just feel like it's not even hard? That may be a reflection of a gifting, and you should lean into that and see, is there something that you can do with that particular thing that will bring honor and glory to the Lord? Then once you get started, you're moving, you're trying out things, I want you to not be afraid to fail. If it is the wrong thing and it's not your gift, big deal. Move on to the next thing. We don't have time. There's too many things at stake. People are dying without Jesus. So we don't have time to be afraid of failing. We've got to boldly jump and then obey the Lord when He redirects us. So as you're doing that, you be faithful in those small things. Be a person of integrity so that when you are in front of a crowd or behind a closed door, you are the same person. Be faithful in the small things, and God will give you bigger. Don't wait for a stage. Honor God with where you are right now with what you have. And then, of course, the last thing, ask God. You know, we talked about last week that He would give us wisdom if we ask Him. And so you don't have to figure this out alone either. You say, Lord, can you help me understand and give me wisdom on what my giftings are? What did you put inside me? What did you give me a burning desire to do or accomplish? What did you make me for? What work has my name on it? And then you stay close enough to His word and to your prayer time with Him that you hear His answer. I want to remind you that Hur's gift looked very different than Bezalel's. Bezalel's gift looked very different from Moses's. And yours will likely look very different than other people around you. That is not an error. That is the design. God, the most creative being in existence, made us to work together with special skills. Of course, we're not all the same. He gave us different jobs so that we could accomplish something bigger. Bezalel's story encouraged me so much because I started thinking about the intentionality of our Creator, the one who spoke light into darkness, the one who designed every species that we can think of, the one who developed the ecosystems and the water systems and rainfall, the one who gave us sunrises. I mean, why does a sunrise and a sunset have to look beautiful? It doesn't. But God made beauty. And that same attention to detail and just because special things He put in creation, He also put in you, His creation. You're not an afterthought. You are a deliberate act of a loving, creative God who has a plan, who created you with intentionality and asks you to join Him in executing His plan by using your gifts and expertise for His glory. So you've got a job to do. I want you to show up so that people who come behind you have a foundation to stand on of seeing you serve the Lord. So honor God with what He put in you. That's the whole assignment. This week, I want you to think about what lights you up. Find 3 to 5 people and ask them, what do you think is my greatest gifting? And then I want you to find your tools, pick them up, and build the kingdom.